one, and away we go. All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us for now episode 6 of the DLT Sandwich. Appreciate everybody joining us. My name is Jeremy Fletcher, host of the DLT Sandwich, also CEO and co-founder of a little software company called Ledgerama. We are in the cryptocurrency business and built the awesome HBAR wallet, Wallawallet. Also super happy to be joining back again for some more DLT Sandwich action. The illustrious Brandon, the HBAR Bull, back to share some of his insights with us. I appreciate it as always. And our main man in Kenya, Tim Mungai. And we're also joined by Phil. Phil is is a Savannah local and also a crypto enthusiast, and he's been following Wallawallet and Hedera here in the Savannah community, along with myself for quite a while here. So, all right. So, not nearly as exciting a week in cryptocurrency as last week was, at least as far as the crazy news and some of the drama that we saw going on in the cryptocurrency world last week. But as usual, there's always plenty of good news. So how things looking on your end, Brandon? You doing all right these past few days? Hadn't seen you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, all good, all good. I know I had some other things going on, but things are good. I interviewed Mance at the end of last week. Mance Harmon, he's the former CEO of Hedera, now CEO of Swirls Labs, and of course one of the co-founders of Hedera. It was a really fun interview. He was up for taking some more pointed questions, some more difficult questions, so that was a lot of fun, and we posted that over the weekend.
Good. Yeah, I started that one off, but I haven't finished it yet, so I've still got to go through and give those weekend updates. You're just you're so generous with the content. It's not easy to keep up with it, and we appreciate it. That's a good problem to have. How about you, Tim? How are things going in your world?
Very well, very well. It's great to have you, Brandon too. I watched your updates. I think we'll have a lot more to talk about. Especially I saw in one of your videos is one where you are talking with the guys at Stader Labs, and I was going through the comment section, and guys were expressing concerns why we have a very high APY. Is this some okay? Or people are fearful. Is this some sort of like some sort of crazy thing happening? But
yeah, that could be explained. We'll get into it.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that so that we can let people feel comfortable in where the source of that high returns are coming from, and they're short-lived. So.
Okay, good. Yeah, we'll see. We'll get over that. We'll get through that in the HBAR News portion. Happy to do it. So Market Mondays, Brandon, what have you got for us this week? How are things looking over the past 7 days?
Well, the past few days have actually been pretty good, considering the turmoil in the broader risk asset markets. I'm actually surprised at how Bitcoin has held up. Bitcoin over the last week is down about 3%. Ethereum's down a little over 3%, and HBAR is down. Let's see here, just about 1%. So it's outperforming over the last week. That said, those big caps, of course, do a little bit better when we get really rocky markets, and we had a pretty good drawdown a couple weeks ago on HBAR. But overall, it's doing fairly well. It came down, of course, and when Bitcoin tested its low over from last summer, from 2021, at about 28.5, and actually broke through it and broke through 27. HBAR fell all the way down to actually to coincide with its high after Google. I'm not sure if you remember where that was, but it was right about 8 cents, and that's where we came down to. There was a doji that shot down and tested in that 8 cents range, and then we've recovered, and now we're sitting at about 10.6 cents. So we're holding steady right now, but what was it? I guess it was probably the first DLT sandwich. We talked about how this was probably a time to be a little bit more cautious, with the macroeconomic headwinds and things like that. As far as the entire crypto space, you have to be cautious right now. But that said, those are when opportunities come out, and of course, HBAR, Hedera can always have its own catalyst to come out. And there's a lot going on behind the scenes with Hedera. And you never know when they're going to come out with a big council member or something like that. Again, this isn't financial advice. There's no financial advice here. I do some work for the HBAR Foundation, but I'm just here on my own accord. I'm not speaking for them. I'm just speaking for myself.
Got it. Understood. So generally, so the markets in general, aside from cryptocurrency and equities and stuff, how are things? I was so busy last week and over the weekend that I hadn't even really kind of got out from underneath my rock to look and see how the rest of the world is doing. Are we basically still kind of in the same situation? Ukraine worries and Fed, hawkish Fed, basically the same worries kind of coming into play.
Yeah, they're still just as hawkish as they were. They're still forecasting several rate hikes this year. But there's some of the economic data that's coming out is looking a little bit more rough. So who knows how long they're going to be able to keep that hawkish rhetoric up before we start to see some pressure. But hey, as long as inflation is up, they have to tackle that first, and that's certainly understandable. But inflation can turn to deflation fairly quickly, so they have to be on their toes, sure.
Right. And somebody I talked to that was mentioning something that they called stagflation, and I have to assume that has something to do with the decrease in velocity of the money supply. But could you talk maybe a little bit more about stagflation and what that means?
Sure. So stagflation, it's something that they talked about in the 70s. It's when you have low or no growth in the economy, but you still have inflation, right? A lot of times we think of inflation coming from an overheating economy because there's a lot of growth. But stagflation, they actually didn't think before the 1970s that you could really see that, or at least the Keynesian economists didn't think that you could see it. But, we saw low growth at times in the 70s, or even negative growth, as well as high inflation. So that's probably the worst of both worlds, when you have those two dynamics working together.
Right. And do you see those dynamics threatening currently? Are we just, it seems like we're on deck for stagflation. I just can't envision it, given the current state of the economy and the basically our productive capacity. I just can't really see a whole lot of growth coming out. We haven't really been planting the best seeds over the past few years and fertilizing that soil. So, what are your thoughts there?
Well, it's hard to argue against a short-term stagflation, right? The first quarter we saw negative GDP growth, so that's right. Negative economic growth. We don't know if that's going to continue. If we get another quarter of that, that's technically a recession, and we're still seeing high inflation. But inflation can come down awfully fast. So as soon as we start to see some of the baselines be higher, so the energy prices after they had their spike last year, we're going to see the inflation numbers start to come down from that, and as things roll over, I think inflation's going to come down, but you never know.
Okay. All right. So all in all, not a bad week. And I guess this is probably something that's on a lot of folks' minds. Do we feel like, are we starting to feel a bottom here? Are we starting to kind of, are our toes skimming the sand on the bottom here, or do we still have room to go, you think?
Well, I am accumulating right now as far as HBAR. I think that, so historically, the fall has been a fairly bad time when it comes to market crashes and things like that, and okay. Growth is slowing. So we could see some better opportunities going forward, but dipping a toe in, sure.
Right. Got it. Okay. All right. So so that was Market Mondays. Thanks for doing that, Brandon. Appreciate it. You're always keen with the market stuff. So again, really appreciate you doing that for us. Into some HBAR news. So if we can go ahead and start off with some of the issues that Tim was mentioning, some of the concern around the APY with Stader Labs and the super high rates. And so my understanding is basically my kind of the simple explanation that I came up with is that this is a combined effort from both Stader Labs and the foundation to get HBAR in the hands of people, to basically get HBAR in people's hands. And so while I don't think that a 50% or 51% APY is really sustainable in the long term, with the generosity of the foundation, it seems pretty reasonable. But there may be other forces at work here that I'm not aware of. Can you speak to that end a little bit?
Sure. So the HBAR Foundation wanted to essentially jumpstart the Hedera DeFi ecosystem. We're still waiting on some decentralized exchanges, but Stader is fast moving, and they are focused completely on staking and providing these liquid staking solutions. The HBAR Foundation, again, wanting to jumpstart it, they allotted 50 million HBAR to this program. And they had a few phases that they wanted to go through. And right now we're in the phase where phase 3, which after the first 2 phases, we allotted some HBAR. And then whatever was left over from that 50 million HBAR, that was going to be paid out from the time we entered phase 3, which was a few weeks ago, until the end of June. So that's a fair amount of HBAR, especially when right now we have a little over a $500 million HBAR total value locked. And that's why you get that super high or significant APY number. It is concerning when you see an APY number and it's really high. Because where is that coming from? How is that actually going to be allocated? But if there's a good explanation for why it's such a high APY, and here we do have a good explanation, it's coming from the HBAR Foundation. It's nothing to be concerned about, right? It actually should be something you should be excited about and take advantage of, right? Now, there are risks to it. There's all kinds of risks associated with these kind of smart contracts, well audited and all that kind of stuff, but there are some risks associated, so make sure you talk to your financial advisor, all those kind of things. But it is a great opportunity. But you said, it's those high APIs are probably unsustainable. Let me tell you right now, it is unsustainable. At the end of June, those APYs are going to come down. We don't know what that's going to look like yet, but they might come down to 10% to 8%, someplace in that ballpark. But one of the nice things about Stader staking is, you heard me mention it's liquid staking. So when you stake, you get a placeholder, kind of like a coat check tag at a restaurant, and you can take that and you can then trade that on other networks. Now, right now, we don't have any DeFi networks, but the plan is you're going to be able to take that HBARX, which is accruing rewards through the Stader staking, and then also provide liquidity in DeFi platforms. And so you'll be able to double dip. You'll be able to get returns from that, and you're also going to be getting returns from the Stader staking. So very interesting stuff.
Good. And so, yeah, as far as risks, so far the biggest kind of one of the biggest concerns that's kind of floating out there right now is as my understanding is that there's currently no ability to unstake the tokens is kind of the general concern. So it's a one-way street at this time, but I have been assured that Stader Labs is working furiously on the ability to unstake. And I mean, they've got a lot on their plate. They're working on building out to be able to support mobile applications like Wallawallet, as well as web applications that they're already supporting. So there's quite a bit on their plate, and I'm sure that they'll get there in good time. I believe there may be even some command line tools for unstaking out there floating around, but of course that's not ideal for your typical user.
Yeah. So they're one of the good things. Okay, of course we feel horrible about everything that happened with Terra Luna, but just like every other enterprise, Stader has limited resources, right? They have a limited number of developers, but because there's people being allocated that were allocated to the Terra Luna staking, now they can be reallocated to Hedera. And right now, we're their marquee staking platform. We have over $50 million total value locked. And I think the next closest one's down around 4 million. So granted, we're not up where Terra Luna was, but we're still looking pretty good. But either way, so now that those developers can spend some time on Hedera, they're going to be able to produce a little bit faster. Before, we were thinking that version 2 of Stader staking, which was going to allow unstaking, wasn't going to be until July. But now it looks like it's going to be in June. They're actually already beta testing, and I've already done it. So, yeah. So they're well on their way. Good. But I understand, you stake, you can't unstake, you don't know if you're going to get your HBAR back, but that's certainly not the case. It is coming down the line. They wanted to get that total value locked. They wanted to get out there and show that they could do it, and they've certainly been successful, again, with over a $500 million HBAR total value locked.
Right, that's awesome. Yeah, and we talked a little bit about that last week after your news. it was good. The news that you had shared last week about Hedera stepping up and becoming the marquee platform for Stader Labs. We shared that, and we did talk a little, and we also went into some of the issues, some of the drama around Terra Luna and what happened with basically with the unstaking of $2 billion worth of UST, and then how that kind of caused that really just kind of started this avalanche, and then they hit that bump. There was a bump in the road where you could only burn X number. I forget what the number was, 100,000 or 100 million USD. I forget what the number was, but basically they hit this bottleneck where everybody was trying to get out, and it just became this total feeding frenzy at the bottom of a funnel there. And we'll get into a little bit more about Terra Luna in our choose your own topic section of the show. But we'll go on with some other HBAR news. Really glad you're here. Because I imagine you'll have some opinion and something to say about this board member compensation deal. Also the Hedera hackathon. So Hedera 22 Smart Hackathon, as far as I know, the entries have closed, and they are working on deciding the winners, and the closing ceremony is to be arranged. So a little bit of news on the Hedera Smart Contract Hackathon there. But this piqued my interest a little bit. The governing council board member compensation apparently was a topic that was being thrown around. I'm not sure. I didn't really catch exactly which channels it was coming from. I could imagine it coming from multiple channels. That's one of those things that people are, folks tend to have their eye on, and understandably so. Where is the HBAR going? What is the council and Hedera doing with it? What they said was, over the past couple months, members of the dedicated community have raised important questions regarding board member compensation at Hedera, and in the spirit of transparency, they wanted to clarify the specific mechanisms, figures, and expectations related to the matter. So it looked like, let's see, of course, there is considerable time and effort required of board members. That's pretty much a given, and it is absolutely within the bounds of it is the norm for board members such as this to be compensated for their efforts. It looks like they're talking about the compensation is in the form of an HBAR grant with a fair market value of up to $250,000 a year, provided that they meet participation and performance requirements. There can be additional stipends of up to $100,000, and then some consistent transaction signers may receive an annual stipend of up to $50,000 annually. And again, these are all in the form of HBAR grants. So $250,000 a year. Okay, and as set forth, and just for a little bit of context, as set forth in the Hedera LLC agreement, the Hedera board may have up to 7 voting members, all of whom are elected by the council members. Board members may be affiliated with council members, or they may be independent, which would be interesting to have one of the organizations just hire a professional board member to come in and sit and represent them on the council. So it looks like, kind of help me wrap my head around this. I imagine first off, are you pretty well familiar with the board member compensation and these items?
I did read the minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it looks like at 7. So if there's 7 total, 7 voting members, I'm guessing that means then there could be up to, what is that?
1.75
mil. Yeah. Give or take a couple $100,000 on the top if there's additional stipends that are granted, and that's going to be annually. But that's it, right? So it's just those. It looks like it's probably just those 7, yeah, so I don't know. What are your thoughts on the compensation of the board members there? I mean, I know this might be a little bit of a touchy subject, but I mean, it's really, as far as I see it, it's just kind of business. I mean, this is just the way that you've got to pay your people, right?
So from what I understand, a lot of these people had responsibilities at some of these other enterprises, right, or the enterprises that are on the Hedera Governing Council, and they're going to have to, or they know that they're going to have to dedicate a lot of time to these board member positions. And of course, they need to be compensated, right? If you're taking away their ability to earn, through their normal job, I'm not sure what responsibilities they would lose or whatever, or what income they might lose because they have to dedicate more time to this. But it only makes sense that they need to be compensated. And of course, these are highly qualified individuals, and they're going to get paid fairly well. So, I certainly don't have an issue with it. I want them to be focused, and I want them to have skin in the game.
Right. And when you look at the number, I mean, the seven voting members elected by the council members, suddenly it's, the number becomes, in my mind, becomes smaller. When you think 250,000 a year for, it's just, and without the context of knowing, well, how many people are we talking about here? I mean, are we talking about 60 people that are going to get, no, if it's only the seven, then suddenly that number is significantly smaller, and that
Sure.
1.75 million is kind of just a drop in the bucket, really. Not really something that scares me too much. The one thing that I did want to get your opinion on, though, and any of you can chime, or any of you are welcome to chime in, of course, but was this idea of 7 voting members. So I would be interested to know exactly what that means for the council, right? So 7 voting members. Now, so they've got 39. Well, what's the current number of governing council?
26, members? I believe.
26. Okay. So they've got 26, and these 26 elect the board, the 7 voting members. So now, does that mean that the 7 voting members are the, so let's say that, let's take an example. It's easier to talk about an example than it is to talk about just kind of nebulous hypotheticals. But let's say that, just for the sake of argument, let's say it was introduced to the council, you know what, we're going to up the supply. We're going to up the supply of HBAR to 100 billion. And from 50 billion, you know what, we think that we need more HBAR in the circulating supply, or in the total supply. So we're going to, now, does that mean that it would basically come down to a majority vote of 7 voting members? Or is this something that the council, these are the questions that kind of come to my mind, and I think probably come to the mind of the community.
I'm not sure what the responsibilities of the board are. That's all going to be handled in, the bylaws in their LLC and all that kind of stuff. But to your specific question about supply, the only way they can change supply, either by burning tokens or by adding tokens, they have to have 100% governing council member vote. And Swirled has come out and said that they are a permanent no. Forever, they will never change the supply. So since they're the only permanent seat and they're a permanent no, supply will never change. And that's in both directions, as I said, increasing supply or burning tokens to reduce supply. Okay,
good. All right, so I like that. That's definitely reassuring. I would like to dig in, and it'd be great to talk. It'd be great to get, maybe one of these days I'll reach out to Brett and see if maybe I could get somebody from the council to come on and explain a little bit more of the nuts and bolts of how the council works and how they make their decisions and stuff. Just for some general insight would be interesting.
I think we could definitely get the answer. I think Christian Hasker or somebody like that could certainly answer what the responsibilities and how the voting is different between the board and then the entire governing council.
Right. And just from my personal experience, I mean, since being in the Hedera space since 2018, that is one thing that I have always found, is that they are more than willing to respond to concerns and questions and be transparent. I mean, there are so many fine details to, I mean, it's difficult to wrap your mind around the nuts and bolts in its entirety, right? Like how this massive thing that is Hedera, how it operates, on the kind of that individual or that granular level. But
they're amazingly accessible. I mean, can you imagine, contacting the CEO of any other company and being like, hey, I want to have an interview with you, and I wanted to ask really, really hard questions that will be difficult to answer. And them being like, absolutely, sure, I'll be on next week.
No way. Yeah, no. So yeah, low and slow softballs only, if you're lucky enough to get them on in the first place. No, yeah, absolutely. Transparency, candidness, always something that we've seen from the Hedera team, particularly the founders, which is always, of course, good to see. All right, so other HBAR news. I noticed this. I noticed the chain abuse. So this was one that spoke to me, for this being the DLT sandwich, right? We do talk a little bit about other. We're HBAR and Hedera token centric, but we do talk about a little bit about other platforms. And this chain abuse platform, a free multi-chain scam reporting tool to empower users against crypto fraud. So chain abuse significantly enhances the depth and effectiveness of our compliance monitoring program by leveraging an aggregated view of the distributed efforts of the entire crypto community. So that's a lot of words and a lot of syllables there. But basically what they're saying is they're taking a bunch of data that's coming in about crypto fraud, And so they're aggregating that data, and they basically want to make it as visible as possible to the entire crypto community. And this is coming from Mandeep Walia, the Chief Compliance and Risk Officer at Circle. So there's some pretty, so let's see who we have on. We've got, I didn't write it down here. So at any rate, there was Solana, there's Circle. Who else is involved in chain abuse? Do you have them off the top of your head, Brandon?
I'm sorry, I don't.
No, that's okay. So yeah, but at any rate, chain abuse, another interesting program to come out. And what I liked about it was that I saw, basically when I saw Solana on there, I was like, oh wow, this is okay. So this is, this is really kind of a collaborative effort. I really like, I like seeing those, the handshake coming across, the bridges being built from one platform to another. So collaborative efforts like this are excellent.
Yeah, you'd really think that it wouldn't be overly difficult to put a bunch of controls around, scams and fraud. As soon as it moves to a wallet and it's been confirmed that it's been a scam, as soon as that hits an exchange, you should be able to grab it and make sure it gets back to the proper party. So yeah, this kind of stuff's great.
Right. Yeah, and it's very strange, being an entrepreneur and being in this space, and then being on Telegram and seeing somebody that claims to be you, or claims to be me, or anybody. I'm sure you probably had plenty of imposters out there representing you, Mr.
I did. I actually had somebody recently on YouTube. They took my little Hedera forum picture there, and they put it next to their name, and they were saying all kinds of crazy stuff. So we got them off so far.
Oh, so they went so far as to make videos and were using your Hedera forum logo?
No, they were not videos. They were just comments in my videos.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, wow, that's really brazen, but yeah, but to see your avatar up there, and of course they find clever ways of disguising, like my favorite one was, my handle has the number 2112 in it, reference to the Rush album that I'm a huge fan. I'm a big Rush fan. And somebody cleverly was it 2-1 and then a capital I to, and it was just so close to my, handle with the name, but it's, in one sense, it's disturbing to see it because there's just so much of it out there, and people, of course, you do everything you can to prevent people from falling for scams, but people get nervous. People, especially when people are reaching out for support. Unfortunately, when people are reaching out support, usually they're reaching out because they're in some kind of distress, right? They need help of some kind, and a lot of they're concerned. And of course, the scammers prey on that because they know that their people are in a hurry to get it figured out, and they're scared about losing their coins, and then suddenly. And then they get involved with some scammer, and then they've really messed up, and now they've really lost everything. So yeah, so everybody, again, just like we we don't give investment advice here. We advise people to do their own research. We also advise people to to watch out for scammers, because this this is something that's been even at the highest levels, right? So what's Gary Gensler the chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission here in the United States, he stated technical risk as being one of his absolute primary concerns in the cryptocurrency space. I mean, I don't think he's against it. He's not against technology and innovation, but they do need to figure out how to regulate and how to understand the cryptocurrency space. And just as far as from a risk management perspective, that was the technical risk. And by technical risk, I mean things like management of private keys. That of course being the main one, and that's usually where they get people, is people don't understand how keys are managed, and so they'll throw out some some kind of technical jargon to get people confused, and then basically scam people out of their private keys and stuff. But it's out there. But yeah, do your due diligence. Don't ever give out any private information. If you especially stuff like recovery keys, recovery phrases, private keys. Keep that stuff safe.
And just one basic rule if you're trying to set up something like an account or anything, and somebody approaches you and asks you to send an amount of money or crypto to our next account so that you can receive help. That's so obvious. Definitely don't fall for that.
Right.
I mean, it sounds so easy, but people fall for such things.
Yeah, sadly, that is the case.
Yeah, they wouldn't do it if they didn't find people.
Right.
They got caught.
All right. So Let's see a little bit more on chain abuse. So if you want to, if you are passionate about helping the community, this is one of the great ways you can do it. Just helping people, helping prevent fraud and prevent scams, and helping educate the community. I mean, I get that question a lot, and I'm sure you get it. I'm sure you get it quite a bit as well, Brandon. People want to know, hey, what can I do, right? If I'm not a software developer, I'm a marketing guy, or or I'm in whatever industry you're in. I'm a nurse, or whatever it is. People want to know, like, how can I get involved? Helping educate other people in the space is a huge one. I mean, that's this is distributed ledgers, right? So it's a distributed world that we're moving into. Look to others, look to the other people that have been in the space. Look for their warnings, and and if you can get out there and educate folks, that's always a good thing. How to support chain abuse. So it is the first multi-chain community-powered crypto spam reporting tool, and is available for anyone to use for free. Organizations who are interested in becoming an official chain abuse partner or want to learn more about scams reported on their platforms can contact the chain abuse team at TRM Labs. That's chain abuse at trmlabs.com. And we're going to be reaching out
We
to
can
them.
have the link in the description for
Yes.
everybody.
Absolutely. Yep. All right. So on to the kind of choose your own adventure section of the show here. So we're going to, just because it's so dramatic, we're going to go back to the troubled Terra Luna platform for our own choose your own adventure this week. We discussed it a little bit last week with kind of how things started, and how the avalanche began to fall. And of course, now this week, the shift is focused from just the shock, right? The shock and awe, the drama, so to speak. And now, of course, people are looking for maybe an opportunity, right? We talk about, when prices are down, that may be an opportunity, so on and so forth. But may want to take a closer look at. So I've had the question asked at least 3 or 4 times over the past week, like, hey, I could buy a bunch of Terra right now, and if it goes up to $1, I'm going to be a multimillionaire. What do you think? Right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those. I understand, and there was a little rally, but it's just when you look at the Terra Luna chart, I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
No.
It's just an absolute. It's like 2-0, close to 0, and then just when you look at like the monthly, it's just like falls off a cliff
Flat
and
line.
then
Yep.
total flat line, right? It's a dead coin. It's a dead. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm not. I don't have any relation to the team. And I absolutely, like Tim and I talked about last week. My condolences out to anybody that lost any significant value in that debacle. Of course, our hearts go out to folks. We never want to see that kind of stuff happen to any network, whether it's Terra or Bitcoin Cash or HBAR. We just don't want to see that. It's not good for cryptocurrency. That's bad news. It gets people scared. And you get people that go all in and then lose their shirts. Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
Right. So I was just wondering, these things could people could steer off getting into them if we had a window into looking at the team, at the core team, the core developers that are developing this kind of technology. Because I understand the founder, the Kwon, this South Korean guy. They say that from the reports from the insiders, they say he was a kind of a dictator. I mean, they'll sell everything out there that it's decentralized, everything is decentralized, but ultimately the decisions to move in a certain direction totally laid upon him, and
Hmm.
this is really bad. If there was a way if we could get to know the character of the core team of the founders, and yeah, I think it could add some valuable information to consider in investing in something.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's really what drew me to the Hedera platform so early on, was to avoid. So, I mean, when you look at, I mean, to me, it always just made sense, right? You've got these massive brands, right, on the council that have I mean, having worked for a major, S&P 500, one of the biggest companies in the world, and worked there for a long time. I can't you cannot overstate how important their brand is, right? I mean, they spend an ungodly amount of money protecting the brand, tweaking the brand, have just the right colors. And I mean, a brand is, a brand is so hugely important, right? So these big companies are not going to be willing to sacrifice their brand for some, complete debacle like we've experienced. But at any rate, yeah, the model of the governing council model that we have in the Hedera space has always been appealing to me, and debacles like the Terra Luna thing are exactly the kinds of things that that the GC is there to prevent. Brandon, so you weren't with us last week. What can you say about the Terra Luna? I have a little bit more news just kind of about their attempts at the recovery and what that means, because I do get a lot. I have been getting a steady stream of people wanting to know, like, should I buy Terra now? Is this the time to buy Terra? So, but before we get into that stuff, what's just kind of, if you share some of your general opinions or.
Well, you need to know exactly what you're investing in, and of course, Terra Luna was algorithmically controlled stablecoin. Okay, so there wasn't any cash dollar for dollar maintaining that peg, and we can look back in the past, and they've failed on a regular basis. These algorithmic stablecoins have failed over and over again. So that's the first thing that you should kind of be a red flag, right?
Right.
I don't think it's an experiment. All these things are experiments, right? Hedera is an experiment. Bitcoin was an experiment, all that kind of stuff. So you have to be cautious with any of these things. Now, the downfall was exactly how it was constructed. They did have other assets that were backing UST. They had Bitcoin and they had some other cryptocurrencies. But as soon as that was gone, the only other thing they had to try to maintain the peg was Luna, right? And I think they had an unlimited supply, so they could just continually dump Luna into the market, trying to maintain that peg. And that was all algorithmic. It was automatic, and it was just going to put it through the floor. So when you have something that can hyperinflate like that, it's probably not going to end well.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
And speaking of these stable coins, what keeps something like USDC at $1?
So they're either backed 1-for-1 with dollars or short-term debt instruments, U.S. Treasuries. So it's backed by the exact asset that it's representing. So as long as there's not an issue with the banking system or with what's backing up the dollar, it should be fine. That said, an algorithmic one is a completely different animal. And that's the question about Tether as well. What's backing it? Now, they do have a significant amount of backing, not nearly as good as USDC, but it's still a different animal compared to Terra Luna.
Right. And one of the things that I love about USDC, and I've talked about this before, is, like you said, with the being backed by debt instruments and things like U.S. Treasuries, and particularly from what I understand, backed 1-for-1. So whereas you've got some of these stable coins, like in the example of UST, the stable coin on the Terra platform, they did have some, like you mentioned, they had some Bitcoin. They had about $3 billion worth of Bitcoin backing it up, but it was not, I'm not sure exactly what the fraction was, but it was like similar to fractional reserve banking, where they only actually had a small portion of the assets to cover their total IOUs that are floating out in the world, so to speak, these UST tokens. And then, and Bitcoin being in the position that it's been in, where it hasn't really been doing all the best either. So when you're dumping more Bitcoin into the billions of dollars of Bitcoin into the market to sell to try and keep the peg to your stable coin, it was just and it just unraveled. So, so Do Kwon's recovery plan proposes a cap. So basically they want to fork Terra, right? So they're talking about, okay, they're just going to hit the reset button, basically. They're going to try and hit the reset button, and they're proposing a cap. So that indicates to me that, like you said, that they previously had an unlimited supply. They're looking to cap it at 1 billion coins, where 900 million tokens of the new chain are set aside to be returned to Luna UST holders from before the depegging event. And then the last the last 100 million tranche of tokens is to be staked at the network genesis state. So basically, it sounds like, look, we're sorry that this happened. We're gonna create a new network. We're gonna fork. We're gonna do it again, but this time we're gonna limit it, and we're gonna try and get you your money back. But I mean, you have to imagine the folks that bought. So I mean, the folks that invested in Terra, I don't know, anywhere over the $5 rate, $20. I mean, it was up to what, $120 per token or something
I
at
think
its peak.
116 was at its peak. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so you've got people that were buying Terra at $100 in the $100 range. Anytime that Terra, the new Terra, if it gets to anything close to $1, and people, yeah, that's got to be incredible amount of sell pressure. I just don't see how they're going to do.
I think they've had their chance. I'm sure there's
Right.
going to be little bumps along the way, but I think that they ran their experiment and their experiment failed, and that's where they sit.
Right. Yeah. And so just for folks out there that are, kind of looking with a hungry, perhaps greedy eye at that super cheap Terra token that used to be $100. So you heard it from Brandon, the HBAR bull. He doesn't think it's going to work. And again, this is not investment advice, folks. We're just guys with opinions on YouTube. They're educated opinions, but they're just our opinions. Do your own research. We don't have a crystal ball. And this, I mean, just as well as I, Brandon, this market can do some crazy things. You remember when BitConnect collapsed and people were still buying?
Yeah, it's unbelievable what can happen. There's
Right.
plenty of good projects out there, Hedera being one of them, that are more compelling in my opinion.
Absolutely. So, so you're not alone in thinking that this won't work. So old CZ from the CEO of Binance, he said it pretty plainly. So I quote, "This won't work. Forking does not give the new fork any value. That's wishful thinking. One cannot void all transactions after an old snapshot, both on chain and off chain." Right. So you're not a lot of confidence that Terra's really going to be able to sustain a recovery. And for what it's worth, I'm with you, Brandon. That's an experiment that failed, and I'm not willing to throw anything at it. But just buyer beware. All right, so that basically wraps up the DLT sandwich. Are there any other comments? Anything? What should we be looking out for from you in the next week, Brandon?
Well, I'm going to be putting out a few Twitter Spaces. I've been recording the ones that we've been doing online. I did one this morning with Galaxy, so I'm going to put that one out today. I think we're going to be doing another one midweek. Have a few things coming out, and then I'm going to try to get back to doing my weekend update. So we're going to have some good stuff coming out.
All right, Twitter Spaces, good. So look out for. And is that which handle do people need to look out for your Twitter Spaces?
The HBAR Bull. So I hosted it using the HBAR Foundation, but I'm going to be posting them under my HBAR Bull YouTube site and posting them under my Twitter site.
Okay. And Phil Marnell, my main man in Savannah here, did you have anything that you wanted to add, or any comments or questions about the stuff that we've gone over before we wrap it up?
I've been a spectator to a bunch of it.
No problem.
But I was interested in the Y Combinator stuff that came out last week advising startups, and I wondered, certainly, I don't know, everything seems to be following the same profile, the same random up and down, and I wondered if you guys had read that, or if you had any feedback on it.
I personally don't. Why? I don't. No, I have not heard any. I haven't heard anything. So, could you kind of just briefly explain what it is that you were looking at?
Basically, they were warning companies that if you were planning to reach for funding in the next 18 months, that it's going to be a very rough. So go ahead and get it now if you can. Otherwise, plan for the longer haul. So
interesting.
VC funding has completely dried up. So those markets have dried up. There's not a lot of capital for startups out there, but I have heard, I watch the All In podcast, and those guys are certainly VC, and they said this is when they try to look for deals, because of course you'll get a better valuation on the companies you are trying to invest in. But Phil, you're absolutely right. The VC capital that was abundant last year is certainly dried up a bit.
Gotcha.
Cool.
Well, thanks for bringing that to the table, Phil. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to shift over. We have so every week here on the DLT Sandwich, we give you not only HBAR news and cryptocurrency news, but we also give you tokens. So every week we love to give away tokens. Right now we're giving away jam tokens. We're giving away 10,000 every Monday. And big shout out to Andrew Antar and the team over at Tune.fm for these awesome jam tokens, helping us promote the DLT Sandwich and Wallawallet. You know, Ledgerama, we have a long-standing relationship. We're good buddies with the Tune.fm team. We're musicians ourselves. We've been following and, you know, we're pretty heavily invested in the Tune.fm team in a lot of different ways. We love supporting them. So, and a lot of appreciation we have for them sharing their jam tokens with us. And without further ado, our 10,000 jam token winner for this week is Killswitch. So the handle looks like @__Killswitch_ Twitter handle. So Killswitch is this week's jam token winner. So we'll be reaching out to Killswitch here. And folks, if you, you know, if you want to, we're doing this every week. So if you want to, you know, if you want to get in and get that, get a chance to win 10,000 jam tokens, all you got to do is look up @Wallawallet on Twitter, and you'll see our, you know, you'll see our tweets out there. You just got to tag a friend and retweet it and give us a follow, and you're in. And we pick winners every week. So happy to do it. All right. Anything else out there before I go ahead and close this one up?
No, thank you, Jeremy. Thanks for having me.
All right. Absolutely. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, guys.
Brandon, Tim, Phil, appreciate you. And folks, if you did like what you saw, please give us a subscribe, hit that thumbs up button, give us a like, and we'll continue. We're going to continue to do this every week. So give us a like, and we will see you folks next time. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.